The old house loomed, imposing, menacing. It stood at the end of a long, winding drive, shrouded in an unnatural mist. The house, known as Hollow Creek Manor, had been empty for nearly a century. Its windows, like vacant eyes, stared out blankly, dark and brooding. The full moon cast long, eerie shadows across the overgrown lawn. A shiver ran down my spine as I stepped out of the car. The air grew cold, as if the house itself was exhaling a breath of icy air. Something about Hollow Creek Manor felt deeply unsettling. I could feel my pulse quicken as we approached the front door. The heavy oak door was half rotted. It creaked open with a low groan. The sound echoed through the empty house, sending a shiver down my spine. The air inside was thick with the smell of decay and dust. The house was dark inside. The only light came from the moon, filtering in through the grimy windows. My footsteps echoed on the bare wooden floors. Each creak and groan of the house made me jump. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. As night fell, the temperature in the house plummeted. The silence was broken only by the sound of the wind howling through the broken windows. We huddled around a flickering candle, our nerves on edge. I thought I heard a whisper coming from the shadows. My friend John laughed nervously. "It's just the wind," he said, his voice trembling slightly. But I wasn't so sure. The whisper seemed to come from somewhere inside the room. It felt cold, like a breath on the back of my neck. As the night wore on, the strange occurrences continued. We felt cold spots in certain areas of the house. Shadows seemed to move in the corners of our eyes. Once, I could have sworn I saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway. When I turned back, it was gone. John tried to rationalize the events, but even he was starting to look scared. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear the whispers and feel the icy breath on my skin. Section 5. The Lady in White. One night I woke up suddenly. Something was different. The air felt heavy, charged with an unseen energy. I sat up in bed and looked around, and that's when I saw her. Standing at the foot of my bed was a woman. She was tall and slender, with long, flowing hair. Her dress was white, but it seemed to shimmer and shift, as if made of mist. Her face was obscured by the darkness, but I could feel her eyes fixed on me. I was paralyzed with fear. Section 6. A ghastly discovery. The next day, we decided to explore the attic. It had always been a place of mystery, a part of the house that no one dared to venture into. The stairs creaked under our weight, each step echoing through the silence, adding to the eerie atmosphere. It was a dark, dusty space, filled with cobwebs and forgotten belongings. Old trunks and boxes were scattered around, covered in layers of dust, as if untouched for decades. The air was thick with the musty smell of old wood and decay. As we pushed our way through the clutter, we stumbled upon a hidden door. It was almost invisible, blending seamlessly with the wooden walls of the attic. The door was small and unassuming, but it piqued our curiosity. It creaked open, revealing a small, dusty room. The room was dimly lit by a single, grimy window that let in just enough light to see. The air inside was even more stale and suffocating than the rest of the attic. Inside, we found a table with a book lying open on it. The table was covered in a thick layer of dust, and the book looked ancient, its cover worn and faded. The pages were yellowed and brittle. They crinkled as we carefully turned them, revealing handwritten notes that seemed to tell a story of their own. The book was a diary filled with the frantic scribblings of a woman driven mad by grief. Her handwriting was erratic, the words almost leaping off the pages in their intensity. She wrote about her husband who had died tragically, and the overwhelming sorrow that consumed her. Her entries were filled with raw emotion, each word a testament to her pain, and about a ghostly presence that haunted her. She described the ghost in vivid detail, its cold touch, its whispering voice, and the way it seemed to follow her every move. The diary ended abruptly, leaving us with more questions than answers. Section 7. Trapped. The mansion loomed before us, its darkened windows like eyes watching our every move. The heavy oak door creaked open, inviting us into its shadowy depths. As we read on, a cold dread crept over me. The diary's pages were filled with tales of sorrow and despair, each word more haunting than the last. The woman in the diary described the ghost in chilling detail. Her words painted a vivid picture of a spectral figure that roamed the halls, its presence felt but rarely seen. She called her the Lady in White. This ghostly apparition was said to be the spirit of a woman who had met a tragic end within these very walls. The woman wrote about how the ghost terrorized her, driving her slowly insane. Night after night she would hear whispers and see fleeting shadows, her sanity slipping away with each passing day. The final entry was a desperate plea for help. Her handwriting was shaky, the words barely legible, as if written in a state of utter panic. Suddenly we heard a loud bang. The sound echoed through the mansion, sending chills down our spines. The door to the attic slammed shut, plunging us into darkness. The only light came from a single flickering bulb, casting eerie shadows on the walls. We raced to the door and tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. We were trapped. The air grew thick with fear as we realized the gravity of our situation. Panic welled up inside me. My heart pounded in my chest and my breaths came in short, ragged gasps. The walls seemed to close in around us. We were trapped in the attic with whatever evil haunted this house. The darkness seemed to come alive, and we could feel the presence of something sinister lurking just beyond our sight. The Lady in White was with us, and there was no escape. Section 8. The truth revealed. The air grew colder. We could hear the whisper again, closer now, circling us. Then a white mist began to gather in the center of the room. It swirled and pulsed, growing larger and more defined, and then it coalesced into the figure of a woman, the Lady in White. She was just as the diary described. Her face was pale and drawn, her eyes filled with a terrible sadness. She looked at us with a mixture of longing and rage. Then she spoke. Her voice was a low moan filled with an unearthly sorrow. Section 9. Escape from Hollow Creek. "I am trapped here," she whispered, her voice echoing around us. The room was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and makes you shiver uncontrollably. Her eyes, wide and filled with sorrow, seemed to pierce through the darkness, pleading for help. Trapped by my grief, by my anger. Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of her emotions. It was as if the very walls of the mansion were absorbing her pain, amplifying it and reflecting it back at us. "Help me!" The Lady in White reached out to us, her spectral hand passing through the air. Her touch was cold, almost icy, and it sent a shiver down my spine. It was clear she wasn't a threat, but a soul in desperate need of release. She wasn't trying to hurt us. Her presence, though eerie, was filled with a profound sadness. It was as if she had been waiting for someone, anyone, to hear her story, to understand her plight. She was trying to communicate. Her gestures, her whispers, all pointed to a deep-seated need to be heard. The more she tried to convey her message, the more the room seemed to close in on us, the shadows growing longer and darker. Suddenly, the attic door swung open. The creak of the old wood echoed through the house, breaking the spell of silence that had enveloped us. It was a sign, a way out, and we knew we had to take it. John and I didn't hesitate. We ran. Our footsteps echoed through the empty halls, the sound of our breathing loud in the stillness. Every corner we turned seemed to stretch endlessly, the exit always just out of reach. We ran out of the attic, out of the house, and didn't stop running until we were far away from Hollow Creek Manor. I never looked back. The night air was cold and biting, but it was a welcome change from the oppressive atmosphere of the mansion. But I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that the lady in white was still there, trapped in that house forever. Her sorrow and pain would continue to echo through the halls of Hollow Creek Manor, a haunting reminder of a soul that could never find peace.